Frank Fritz, the beloved co-host of American Pickers, spent most of his life traveling across the country trying to find hidden treasures and turning them into prized possessions. But what many didn't know was the true size of the fortune he's built quietly over his lifetime. Frank's love for antiques wasn't just a mere passion, it became his foundation of a fortune that surprised even his closest friends. After taking a backseat from the show, Frank's life became complicated, and now his legacy has left his family with a mix of tears and admiration for the life he's built. Join us as we spill the tea about the fortune Frank left behind that makes his family cry. In 2022, Frank Fritz was hospitalized after suffering a severe stroke that left him in critical condition. When everyone thought he was getting better, meeting up with his friend and co-host Mike Wolfe, he unfortunately passed away in September 2024. This was confirmed by Mike Wolfe, who shared the heartbreak news on Instagram, saying, "It is with a broken heart that I share with all of you that Frank passed away last night." According to Frank's death certificate, the official cause of death was a stroke caused by cerebral vascular disease. Other contributing factors included aortic stenosis, a condition that narrows the heart's aortic valve, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a lung condition that affects breathing. But prior to his death, he went through some difficult times that people thought drained him financially. However, that wasn't the case. His fortune was kept intact, but to many people's great surprise, his huge fortune allegedly has no will. Frank's death left his family emotional, not just because he's deceased, but due to complications surrounding his wealth, conservatorship, and absence of a will. You see, all these didn't happen overnight. The backstory started long before his death. After suffering a severe stroke in 2022, Frank was left unable to cater for himself. He was unable to manage himself and his finances. His physical and mental condition deteriorated to the point where his family and friends petitioned for conservatorship. What this means is that a legal guardian was appointed to manage Frank's personal and financial affairs. Since he couldn't do so by himself, this was done in good faith by the people around him to ensure his safety and protect his assets. After the petition, Frank's longtime friend was appointed as his guardian. His job was simple: he would help Frank handle his daily care, medical decisions, and living arrangements. Meanwhile, Midwest One Bank was appointed as the conservator of Frank's finances. This meant the bank was responsible for overseeing his assets, including his real estate, antiques, and bike collection. For a man who's traveled across the country making deals and thriving on independence, the conservatorship was a painful loss of autonomy. The fortune he worked so hard to was now under the stern control of a bank. But the conservatorship was the least of his friends and family's worries. Apparently, Frank didn't leave behind a legally valid will before his death, which created some complications. What this means is that the distribution of his fortune will most likely fall under state intestacy laws, which dictate how assets are divided when someone dies without written instructions. In Iowa, where Frank lived, intestacy laws prioritize immediate family members. MERS, if Frank had children, they would inherit their father's assets, and if not, the fortune would be passed to surviving parents, siblings, or close relatives. And that screams one question on everyone's lips: did Frank have a wife or children? Back in 20,121, rumors spread that Frank, known for his long bachelor status, had finally tied the knot. But you know, rumors will remain rumors unless proven otherwise. On American Pickers, Frank's relationship status has been a mystery, mainly because he isn't active on social media platforms. However, fans started speculating that Frank might be heading towards marriage after noticing his public display of affection with a woman named Diane. He occasionally shared photos of her on his now private Facebook page. Also in 2016, Frank posted a picture of Diane, her daughter Paige, and Paige's daughter. The post shocked his fans when he addressed the baby as his granddaughter. His fans were quick to assume that he had married Cecit secretly, but Frank later clarified that what he meant was Diane's family is his family, and it is great being Grandpa Frank. While his friends were happy that their favorite host has something going on in his life, things took a different turn in 2021. During an interview, Frank revealed what happened behind the camera with Diane. Apparently, Frank wanted to get married to Diane and even bought a property in Iowa in preparation for his new family. Unfortunately, he found out that Diane had another man she was seeing. The revelation ended their relationship, even though Diane denied the allegations that she was seeing another man. So despite his efforts to have a family, the relationship fell apart, leaving Frank all to himself. Basically, Frank and Diane went the separate ways long before his death, and that means Frank had no wife or children. And according to the intestacy laws, in absence of immediate family, close relatives will be given priority, which most likely doesn't reflect Frank's true wishes for his family. The absence of a will added another shred of sadness to their loss, without knowing his exact wishes. they were left to speculate on how he would have wanted his fortune to be shared. His most prized possessions, antiques and bike collection, which has historical significance, could be sold. The conservatorship also made matters worse, as Midwest One Bank was still in control of his million-dollar assets, delaying the resolution of the issues. At least, that was what many thought happened. But according to a reliable news source, Frank actually filed his will in a court a year before his death, and his plans for the $6 million fortune were approved in October 2023. Frank's attorney helped him submit his will to the court for proper safekeeping. The source also reported that an Iowa judge reviewed and accepted the will. However, the will, along with related legal documents, remained sealed. The sealed will means that Frank's family were left with answered questions. They could not explicitly know how he intended to share his wealth. Although the secrecy is legal, it added some frustrations and grief to an already difficult situation. While it might be surprising that Frank left behind a huge fortune, it shouldn't. Many only got to know Frank Fritz after he teamed up with Mike Wolfe to kickstart American Pickers. But Frank started his career long before that. Before becoming a husband on the TV, Frank worked as a fire inspector for 25 years. During that time, he started collecting mementos related to firefighters and firehouses. His idea was simple. He believed that he could make a living from it when he paid just $15 for a piece and sold them for $475. But Frank wasn't just building up his wealth with MOS, he was actually saving the money to buy bikes. You see, Frank loved bikes, especially unique ones, so to save up cash for a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, he had to collect enough momentum to work a part-time job at Coast to Coast Hardware. Around that time, Frank also started collecting antiques and vintage goods. Fast forward to 2002, he opened up an antique shop, Frank Fritz Fins, in Savannah, Illinois. Taking a break from his fire inspector job, the shop served as a hub for selling the unique items he collected during his picking adventures. From vintage toys to rare signs, the shop became a successful business that added to his fortune. Due to his reputation and skill in locating antiques, he soon became a popular figure in Savannah. To Capitol, the History Channel program, noticed him, and the rest was history. Frank's big break came when he stepped into the spotlight with Mike Wolfe as a co-host on American Pickers. On the show, Frank pockets up to $300,000 per season, which became a major contributor to his wealth. In addition to his works on American Pickers, Frank also acts as a voice actor, and it might be surprising to know that he voiced an episode of the animated series American Dads in 2017. He also appeared on many other TV shows, including American Restoration, Pawn Stars, Rachel Ray Show, and Late Show with David Lamman. All these contributed significantly to his net worth. Apart from the TV shows, Frank also showed his passion and expertise as an antique picker. To write books, he was able to launch 2 books, American Picker's Guide to Picking in 2011 and How to Pick Vintage Motorcycles in 2013. With Frank being a fan favorite, you best believe his books will do well in the market and contribute to his wealth. But Frank didn't stop there. He also ventured into real estate, purchasing properties that added value to his portfolio. His investments include a spacious house in Iowa, which he reportedly bought for $130,000 in 2010. He then acquired an adjoining property for $25,000, which brings his total to $155,000 over the years. The farmhouse's value has increased significantly, contributing to his wealth with numerous business ventures and properties. Frank Fritz's net worth is estimated to be around $6 million, which was a bit surprising for many of his fans and family. Now, don't get this wrong, Frank is a hard worker and has been building his wealth since forever, but many thought he lost it all to sickness. Well, according to a reliable source, Frank spent close to $30,000 monthly on in-home health care before his death, but the truth is Frank's problems began long before his stroke. It all started after he left American Pickers. What many noticed immediately after Frank stopped appearing on the show was his weight loss, which of course sparked concerns. Frank has long been open about his battle with Crohn's disease, a chronic inflammatory bowel condition causing symptoms like abdominal pain, fever, weight loss, and complications such as anemia and arthritis. However, he didn't reveal that his weight loss was due to his disease, but rather attributed it to his newly adopted lifestyle. He claimed he had been watching what he consumes and eating healthy so he could keep the disease under control. Frank also mentioned that tending to the plants at his farmhouse and engaging in the strenuous work contributed to his weight loss. While all these sound convincing, it was later revealed that Frank's weight loss wasn't tied to the strenuous work, but rather his personal addiction. Beyond Crohn's disease, Frank struggled with the bottle. In 2017, he was arrested for driving under the influence. The arrest led him to being fined and also forced to undergo an evaluation program and probation. By 2021, Frank had been sober for years. He entered a 77-day rehab program to bridge the gap between him and his addiction. Prior to this, he lost his mother and his grandfather to health issues related to the same addiction, so he probably had to rethink to turn his life around, but it appears Frank was dealing with a lot more than just addiction. In 2021, a source reported that Frank had been having difficulties in paying property taxes on his Iowa farmhouse. For someone who allegedly earns over $300,000 per season on American Pickers, this shouldn't have made the news, but it seems his departure from the show affected his finances. Additionally, his medical bills might also play a big role in the financial mess. Frank's post-surgery bill was reported to cost a whopping $270,000 per annum. To break this down, Frank spends about $28,000 monthly on expenses, including $22,000 on in-home healthcare. Other expenses include $1,250 on food, $850 in health insurance payments, $500 in transportation, $250 in clothing, and more. For someone who is out of a job and earned just $60,000 annually from investments, his monthly expenses were out of this world. However, it seems Frank had been battling financial issues for years. In 2017, his company FFF Holdings was shut down. The backstory was that the business license was dissolved for failing to file the required documents demanded by the government. Although the company, which has been in existence since 2010, is no longer active, his store Frank Fritz Fins continues to operate. To further complicate things, Frank sold his Iowa farmhouse in 2019 after his separation from his estranged lover Diane. The relationship, which many thought would lead to marriage, ended after Diane accused Frank of negligence, but it wasn't just negligence. Frank was also accused of infidelity. One of the major reasons that caused the separation between the ex-lovers was that Diane walked in on Frank with another woman, which caused a strain in their relationship. Although the two reconciled after the incident, the lack of trust was still there. While they were still trying to settle things between themselves, their relationship took another blow when a firework accidentally went off in their home. According to Diane, Frank was drinking with a friend when he lit a firework, and when the firework failed to ignite, he disposed of it carelessly in an ashtray. Diane, who was unaware of the fireworks, went to light a stick near the ashtray, which caused an explosion that affected some parts of her face and hand. After the incident, Diane revealed that Frank refused to take her to the hospital immediately. Instead, he told her to toughen up. Diane had to wait after some days to receive medical attention after the incident. After receiving adequate care, Diane, who was clearly fed up with Frank, filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of negligence in the firework accident. As part of the lawsuit, Diane asked for $50,000 in compensation for pain and suffering, emotional distress, loss of function of body, loss of earning capacity, loss of a normal life, and medical expenses. However, the case was dismissed by the court, but not the personal drama. After the court case, it was evident that the relationship between the lovers ended on a bitter note. In several interviews, the duo accused each other of infidelity, with Frank claiming that Diane had been unfaithful to him for 2 years. He even mentioned that her actions made him get the phrase "want a cheater, always a cheater" tattooed as a reminder not to make the same mistake again. Diane, on the other hand, stated that she simply wants to move on from the relationship despite all the struggles going on in his life and the brouhaha with Mike Wolfe. Frank was still gunning to make a return to the TV. In one of his numerous interviews, he stated, "I'd still like to get back to my job. I miss my friends and my people and being on the road and meeting all those different characters." He even printed some merchandise t-shirts with prints of "I want Frank back," even though he later settled things with Mike at a reunion during Memorial Day weekend. That wasn't enough to get him a place on the show, as he passed away some months later in accordance with his last wishes that his remains be placed on the back of a motorcycle for a ride through the Quad Cities. A memorial motorcycle ride and concert would be held in honor of his memory. This would be a form of last respect by his friends and family to celebrate Frank's love for motorcycles and his adventurous spirit.